Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30 p.m. This is a regularly scheduled Marquette Township Board meeting. Make sure your microphones are on and your cell phones are off, please. It's August 15th, Tuesday night, 2017, and if you'd join us in the pledge, we'd appreciate it. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattard is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes, here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, Township Attorney Roger Zappa, Superintendent of Public Works Kirk Page, and let's see, I think I see our Assistant Chief Dan Shanahan's here from the Fire Department.
And Mr. Cochran, too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. The next item is our consent agenda, which tonight consists of approval of the regular minutes of August 1st, received committee and other reports, including the Fire Department activity report from July, Sheriff's report from July, Planning Commission draft minutes of July 12th, and the staff report of August 9th, election statistics we put in from the clerk, and my comments, also bills payable in the amount of $987,432.51, and preliminary financial statements and the treasurer's report from July and June. Any approval?
Move to
or
approve
anything?
the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we just need a motion on the rest of the agenda, the remainder, unless someone wants to pull something out or has questions.
I move to accept the regular agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Stuff in order here. Lost the second page. Okay, well, next up is the comments, public comments, excuse me. I got too many papers here. Anybody'd like to address the board, please come up to either microphone. Name and address, please.
Jason Ayers, real estate officer for the Keweenaw Bay Indian Community. And I would like, if I may, to reserve time under unfinished business 9D to either speak or answer questions if necessary. Thank you.
9D. Thank you.
Steve Laurie, 1813 Woodland in Marquette, here tonight representing Chalkley Township to answer questions if you have any that I can respond to on 9D.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anybody else wish to comment or visit with us? Okay, any board member comment? Yes, Pete.
Well, since our community days, and several people have asked me about the speed limit in Marquette Township. The speed limit in Trowbridge Park is 25 miles an hour. It's not posted, but Trowbridge Park is a platted subdivision, and the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. So I just wanted to clear that up because some people have said that it's 55 miles an hour. It's not. It's 25 miles an hour. And before they can change that or put signs up, they'd have to have a speed count, traffic thing. And then, yeah, you gotta be careful what you wish for when you come to something like that. Because with the new roads now, people are a little concerned about it. And if they start taking the traffic, then 85% of the print of it is gonna be, so you could have 45 miles an hour. So in the residential area, it's 25 miles an hour.
Where they may have gotten confused was when Commerce was first put in, or not first put in, but especially repaved, it had a 55 speed limit. And I don't think that's changed yet. It's
Dan?
not really posted. Dan?
I just wanted to also say that with Pete saying that, it's going to have to be made, Marquette County Sheriff's Department is going to have to be made aware of that because it is their feelings. It's 55. We talked about this at Community Days, and the deputy that was there was saying it's all.
In Trowbridge.
Yes,
In Trowbridge.
yes. We argued with him. We told him, no, it's 25. He said, no, it's not. It's 55. So
That's why
some
we
type
don't
of
have
memo
tickets.
should have to go over to
I
Zybert.
think our manager's got to talk to the,
I think he has a
Sheriff's
thought
Department.
already. Go ahead, Randy.
Just to clarify, the Michigan Traffic Code specifies residential areas unless otherwise posted are de facto 25 miles an hour. Trowbridge Park is a platted subdivision that falls under that definition. Well, I think where the confusion is coming in is some roads are constructed to a 55 mile an hour standard. That doesn't mean it's a 55 mile an hour speed limit. As a for instance, Commerce Drive is designed to a 55 mile an hour design, but it is posted at 35 and 45. So unless otherwise posted, residential streets are 25 miles de facto under the code, the Michigan Traffic Code. I think where the confusion comes in is that all of the roads in Marquette Township are designated as, quote, county roads because we don't own any of the roads, and that's where I think the confusion is coming in with that 55 miles an hour. So as it sits right now, and I've had this discussion with prior road patrol lieutenant who agreed, the Michigan Traffic Code specifies that a platted subdivision, urban residential area, 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
that's exactly what I said.
Yep. Now, within Trowbridge, however, you have to understand that you have several primary roads, Ontario and Warner. They are posted at a different speed limit, specifically. Other than that, they're 25 miles an hour.
That might be a good thing to put in the water bills. We've gotten a suggestion from the Business Association today for something else. Maybe we can put 3 or 4 or 5 different items on their next bill. Just guess what? Or for
Sure.
instance.
You can do that.
I
I'll
think
get
I-
together with the road patrol captain as well.
Okay, thank you. Ernie?
Talking about Warner and Ontario, Fair Avenue also is posted at 35.
35, that's correct.
Which is ridiculous with the amount
Yeah.
of traffic and the people walking.
And the only difference is, they're designated by the County Road Commission as primary roads that are commercial, particularly, so.
I don't know who's first. Dan?
I just wanted to ask Randy, then, can a memo of some sort be sent over to the Sheriff's Department so that our deputies are aware of this?
Yeah, I'll get together with the new road patrol captain.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, everything changed in that department with the election, too. John, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to include, for everybody's information, that includes all motorized vehicles.
Correct.
Because, well, anyway, that's enough.
Dave?
Oh, I'm good.
It changed? Okay. Yes, Ernie.
Okay, one thing on the consent agenda, it had the vehicle status for the fire department. I keep looking at this every month that comes through and that. And for me to go back and see how long they've been showing up, I'm wondering, is it possible to put a date as to when they first showed on this list? So we know how long they've been standing out there and that, so we know where they're at. Because otherwise, I gotta go back in time and say, okay, they've been showing up now for 3 to 4 months and that. Gives us some idea what's looking forward to the future.
That's a good idea. Can we, I think Dan's writing that down. Can you do that? Mention it? The other thing I had asked the chief to do was define the vehicle, because if you remember, it just said 2157, and I said, I don't know what that is. So they did this month. Somebody did. Rob maybe did, or whoever's doing the reports. Added that, so that helps, and I know which vehicle they're talking about. Yeah, that's a good idea. Randy?
Well, just to report on the election last Tuesday, everything went well. We had a pretty low turnout. We had about a 20% turnout within the township, but that was to be expected, I guess, with a special primary. The next election will be in November 7th. Sarah Combenzi had won the election, so she'll be moving on to the ballot, along with Rich Rossway on the Republican side for the November ballot. So everything went well with the new machines. We only had one hookup or hiccup on it, and it wasn't the machine's fault, it was the workers' fault. And so everything went well, and we're moving forward.
The only thing I was going to share is I don't know if you went how strictly you went through your budget or your financials, but if you'll notice, this is through July, and yes, 55 and
55%.
less percent. Yeah,
Right.
we're doing really good budget-wise, thanks to our manager and keeping the tabs on everybody. Some of the budget amounts are like 29% to budget for the year. I don't think it even went over 55. So that's pretty good. I mean, we don't have the money, so we're not spending it, which is even better.
There was a couple real small ones that were, because everything happens the first 6 months of the year.
Right.
Other than that.
Yeah, well, and the insurance or that kind of thing, that's 100% right off the bat. But even then, with those, the counteracts even kept it at 55.
Right.
That's all I wanted to share. Staff report. Our fire chief's away right now, but we have the assistant fire chief here and the fire inspector, and I guess they can share a few minutes of what's going on in the fire department. I got some notes on the ambulance, and I guess we're gonna have lettering pretty soon. So that's exciting.
And I will be brief. Ernie, I guess to answer your question first on the trucks, I know I'm sure it's concerning when you look at this, but it's not as bad as when you read it, so it's a little, I'm not sure we need to put all of this in there. Dan and I spoke, I don't know if I can, but Dan and I
Oh,
did
yeah.
speak about it a week ago about letting you, because if I was to see this, the first I'd go, oh my God, the trucks are falling, but no, we're in real good shape. And these are older problems. We're deciding, should we take care of them? And some of the things we do, but I guess they're a couple of years old. And it's nothing serious like rust on the rim, the rails or something. Well, I guess all vehicles do. But when we had the inspector come through, or not the inspector, but the guy that does the maintenance on the trucks, he points it out. We transferred it to this report, and don't be concerned, I guess. And it is. I understand why you would be.
They're not going
reading
to fall
this.
apart tomorrow.
No, but they are getting older also.
Yeah.
So we want to make the board aware of that also.
And I guess that's one of the things you have to remember is that, our newest unit is now how old?
Was it
2004? The Seagrave?
96? Oh, the Seagrave. I forget about the
2004?
Seagrave.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
2000, yeah.
yeah,
Three.
it's not, what you're
Yeah.
dealing with is a watch list, I guess is what I would call it. There are items that, as a for instance, if you've got a set of tires that are supposed to be 40,000 miles, you keep track of the tread, and when you get down to around 30,000 miles, you start putting it on a list to keep checking them more often, because there's a change coming up. Well, that's most of these items that are on here are watch items, because you're getting close to the point where you might need to replace it, so they're keeping track of that, and that's what you're seeing on that list.
That was my concern, because I keep seeing this
Mhm.
The same thing. I
every
understand.
month and that.
Dan
Point.
gave an excellent example, rust on the frames. Well, just sitting doing nothing, you get, corrosion on the frames, but they take care of the corrosion, you keep an eye on it, and if it looks like it's getting to a point where it might be an issue, then you get it taken care of. And that's what it's more of a watch list to remind them as they're going around doing their checks to make sure they look at those items.
Just briefly, yeah, I know you do have our activity report. I won't go over those too much, but just that you are aware, 40% of our calls were between the hours of 8 and 5 of our medical calls. Guesstimating for the ambulance part of it, we would have transported 10 of these possibly. The computers on the trucks, we are waiting from a quote from Central Dispatch, which is the price is sounding very, very good to us right now, but we won't have an answer until their next board meeting. Supervisor Durant had said the lettering is scheduled for next week. Rob and Mike and I have been working with Connie Cleary. She's the MHR billing person. And I think we're up to date on everything except for 2 items. But on our end, I think we're in real good shape and she's happy with us. Rob and I also met with Allison Sundberg, and I don't know her title. I believe she has many titles right now. She works for Duke Life Point. She's the director of EMS, and she's also the director of Med Control, but she might have another title in there too right now. Basically, what she was asking is what is expected of us, what is expected of MGH. Good conversation to have. We possibly will be meeting in the next 2 weeks with the Inter-Operation Agency, and that's a group of like 5 different departments, ambulances throughout Marquette County, and could possibly Alger, to again discuss and agree upon what is expected of us, what is expected of them. And then it's at September 5th, we are going to be on the MCA board packet for discussion. That's where Alger and Marquette counties will decide if they like us or not. And that's just more of discussion and approval. And I guess the only other thing, the 2 things that we're waiting for was the agreement. And I know, Roger, I guess we're and Randy, I don't mean to be, I'm just throwing it out there, and I don't know if, you want to discuss it or talk about it for a brief minute, or if there's any reason to even.
And basically, what Dan's alluding to is all of these meetings that all these meetings that he's discussing, and the agreements are basically operating agreements, just like our shared services agreements that we have, dealing specifically with the ambulance service now. And what Roger's reviewing is the content of a proposed agreement, contract, basically, between us and primarily Marquette General Health Systems for professional coordination. When are their paramedics going to be with us? How is it going to interplay? Who's going to be responsible? Those kinds of things. And the initial, and I don't want to speak for Roger, he can jump in here, but the initial review is that there's really nothing in that agreement that's alarming or causing any issue. It needs to just be refined to be Marquette Township versus what the draft is. So I guess really not much, there's not much else going on. There are a lot of agreements and a lot of meetings that have to take place and understandings that have to be reached in terms of how dispatch is going to work, who's going to be dispatched when and on what calls, and that's what Assistant Chief Shanahan's referring to.
Okay.
We do have a date. It's September. That interagency agreement is September 29th. And that's where that group of like 5 or 6. August 29th. I just found that out. And yeah, we'll be on the packet. And then we're just waiting for our license after that. After we get that signed, I think we're going to be ready to go.
Any questions for Dan or Rob? Good.
No hook needed. Thanks.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
update, guys. Appreciate it.
I want to be the first one.
Well, we could have Kirk, but I think we'll beat him up in a few more steps down as we get down. So we can ask him questions then. Okay, 9A is road project update. Anything from Dave?
All kinds of things. To update the road project, the road asphalt was completed last Friday for all of the road surfaces. The driveway asphalt has been completed today. The driveway gravel, that's the gravel driveways that are connecting back up to the road, they'll be completed Friday. That's this Friday on the 18th. The concrete driveways, while they've already begun, they're going to take a little bit longer. They will be completed a week from Friday, which is going to be the 25th. And then slope restoration and mailboxes is all that remains after you consider the driveway connections. Those are starting a week from today, be August 22nd when they start on that, and they will be done by mid-September. And that is all with the road rehab project. We do have an update. The board had some questions on the self-Vandenboom repair, and we got a hold of Associated and figured out exactly what they were talking about. And the board did approve the amount and approved to move ahead with the repair, but they had some question on what exactly they were doing and how far they were going. The restoration is going to happen from 825 to 725 on the address, which 825 puts it at the top of the hill where the erosion starts and takes it down to the PRV valve and just beyond that to that collection basin. They're going to recontour the bottom of the ditch, and then they're going to put staked sod in the bottom of the ditch to hold it until it takes root. There's also going to be 5 dams placed along that same stretch from 825 to 725 to slow the water down. They're going to clean the culvert on 725, and Associated is currently seeking quotes to install those PRV valve controls that are out on the stake to put them on inside of a utility box. Now, we have not got a quote on that yet. They're going to start that project on Tuesday in next week, and they will be done with it by the weekend.
The only thing that may continue beyond that might be the utility box, and that would be simply for acquiring it, basically, to enclose the power stations.
That's it, unless somebody's got some questions. We do have a number of issues that we're dealing with, but overall, things are going really well. I mean, we always have there's a problem with my driveway, and can you fix this, and can you fix that? And I guess between Mark and myself, we've probably been out to 3 or 4 dozen of them over the past couple of weeks. They've all been resolved. As of this afternoon, we had our meeting on the most contentious one, and that has been resolved. So all that is moving along pretty good. The big thing I would remind the people who are waiting for their concrete driveways to get restored is don't continue to use that, because as they get ready to put the concrete in, they're taking all the temporary gravel out. And what that's going to result in is going to result in a 6-inch drop when you come off the road, and it's going to result in a 6-inch drop off your driveway. So you could cause some serious damage to your car, and you're certainly going to cause some damage to the fresh asphalt on the road. So you might want to consider that and continue parking on the street until your concrete is actually replaced, and then 4 or 5 days after that to allow it to cure. There's been some questions about cleaning up some of as they did the asphalt repair in the driveways and replacing that, there's some asphalt that gets dropped on the roadways, and there's some concern that we're messing up our roadways. That's all part of the restoration process, and that'll all get cleaned back up. One gentleman talked about some deep tire tracks that were made along one stretch of road with one of the asphalt trucks that were staging there, waiting to load asphalt into their paver. Wondering if those were going to get cleaned up, and all that kind of stuff is going to get cleaned up when they do the restoration. So you just need to be patient with that, and just kind of put up with the dirt and the dust, and they'll have it out of there when their restoration is done.
Great. I want to remind the public too that we don't own the roads. Sounds like a broken record, but Marquette Township does not own these roads. The road commission does. We took this project on because our residents said overwhelmingly this is what they wanted to happen. They wanted the roads fixed. So I know Dave, and I'm not sure Randy, have gotten some irate people out there because they're not getting this or that, or this part of the road isn't being fixed, or their driveway is not the way they like it, or this. Don't be yelling at them. It's not fair. These are volunteers, guys. I mean, Dave is anyway. We're paying
If I
Mark
could,
and-
I could
Yell at
interrupt.
me.
Just-
it's frustrating to think that.
There are some general misunderstandings out there, but I haven't met anybody yet where when you actually explained this scenario and how things are gonna go, that they haven't calmed down and everything is fine. So it's just, their initial reaction is the world's coming to an end, but it changes shortly after a short conversation.
Well, because we're not fixing the roads, you know, we can't do the infrastructure, we can't do the drainage and deal with all that. And we had a good conversation, Randy and I, with the road commission. We'll talk about that another time, but a lot of good information. But we're doing the best we can with not only the funds we have that we're entrusted with through the millage, but we can only do so much. You know, we can't refurbish everything. So the main point is just to get these roads more drivable. Pete?
As you said, Dave is a volunteer. He's also the chairman of the road committee, and the residents should be happy that he's out there taking on all this stuff.
I'm glad.
I don't want to say too much because mine's not done yet. But it is. I mean, he fields a lot of questions, and go out there, try to work it out, and a couple people got kind of irate with him, but I do appreciate that because it's a lot of extra work for him. But
Haven't found anybody that's not talking to me anyway.
So far.
Some started out that way, but we've crossed that bridge.
Good, I appreciate it.
as long as you don't go tell somebody my road's fixed, I don't care.
That's why you're last.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else for Dave or the manager? Okay. So crack sealing, Farner, that's kind of what you touched on, or do you have some more you wanna?
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't even,
Yeah, that's another issue. Go ahead.
It's in your board packet, and if the first page of that, and I think it's page number 59 of your board packet, is the estimate from Farners. And if you recall back at least 2 meetings ago, Farner in error went out and fixed the roads that the board had not approved the bid for. And they went out and did some crack sealing. If you remember, the reason the board did not approve the bid is because it didn't include the types of repairs that were needed to adequately take care of the roads for the winter season. Anyway, it wasn't an authorization to Farner from Marquette County Road Commission. Farner just got their signals crossed and went out and did the repair. Since then, the manager and I sat down with Farner and to see if we could work out what we're going to do with this situation. And what you're seeing on page 59 is what the resolution we've come up with. The first price, the $11,785, that is the original bid from Marquette County Road Commission. Farner took that and they backed off the 17%, which was added on by the Marquette County Road Commission for their site
commission.
Oversight.
Yes.
oversight. So they took that out, and then the next one down, the less lineal feet to be patched, they went out and took a look at it and subtracted the lineal feet of crack seal that would have been better served with a different type of treatment. And that came up to $437. So when you back those two items out of the original bid, the crack fill price come down to $9,344.86. Then we went out and took a look at what should have been done in those spots where they backed the price out, where they took the $437 out. And it come up with 48 patches that needed some other form of treatment, whether it be an overband or a heavier seal. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Marquette County cold patch. This is not the cold patch. This is an infrared seamless patching system where they actually apply heat to it. They use rollers on it to pack it down so there's not a seam left for water to get into. It's more of a permanent fix. So they come up with 48 patches using this system, and that part of the bid is $6,300. That brought the whole price, by the time you put that with the original crack sealing that was done, it brings the whole price up to $15,644.86. If you want to finish up what we started at 2 months ago. And that's what we'd like to have the board consider tonight is awarding that to Farner for the 15,544.86.
So the only concession they really gave us was the $437.
Yeah.
For doing
Well,
something we really didn't want to have
And we
done.
backed off, we got rid of the 17% of
17%.
county's oversight money.
But that's not anything out of their pocket.
Correct.
Randy?
Yeah, if you'll recall, when we talked about this, there were certainly roads that the crack sealing that they did, the tar application was appropriate for. But we basically flushed the whole bid because several streets, Fair Avenue in particular, were not suitable for that kind of a repair. You know, what we were going to do is go out for bids ourselves anyway to get that repair done properly. So what you've got here basically is essentially that. We did get the crack sealing on the other roads, so what they needed got done. We're paying for that. The portion that needed, as Dave said, the heavier actual, I don't want to say reconstruction, but being brought back up to a solid surface like we've done with all of the other roads. And what was happening is Fair Avenue, when that was put down, it's hard to believe, it was put down now in 2004 and 2005 with the original water project. And what's happening is, and you see it on lots of blacktop roads, it starts to separate at the center seam where the two have come together. And that's from water action, that's from freezing and thawing and all the things. Well, that's what's happening on Fair, and the gap is basically about that wide. So that's not appropriate for that tar sealing. So that is what's being proposed here, and it's what we were going to go out for bids for anyway. That's the $6,000 portion of it. And that's why we're recommending that this be approved. And this would be coming out of the road repair fund. As you'll recall, the millage was for the restoration and maintenance of the township roads. So this would fall under that maintenance portion.
Well, it has nothing to do with Brookton.
No, this is,
Brookton did get the tar seals, and that's what called for on that. We will be having to deal with Brookton. Remember, that road was done at the same time Werner was done, and that was estimated to be about a 5-year fix, and we're already at probably year 6 already. So we're going to be having to do some different work on Brookton Road to bring that up to spec, and we haven't even talked about yet what that might be. But when we fixed that, we simply did what's called a wedge and overlay. So it was kind of a ribbon, up and down, up and down. So what they did is they filled the low areas and then did an overlay on top of it. So that was about a 5-year estimated fix. So it's held up quite well, but it's getting fairly heavy traffic now because of the no left turn at the intersection. Everybody's going straight and turning left, to get back to the highway. So it has held up well. It's probably got a few more years in it, so we're not immediately facing that, but it will have to have some attention here in the not too distant future.
I might add, the bulk of that 48 patches is spread between Fair and Brookton.
Right.
There's a couple holes in Werner that they're going to fix. Northwoods Road didn't need anything besides the crack seal. But those are the 4 roads that we put out to the county for bid, and those are the 4 they looked at this time. Was Fair, Werner from Ontario to Commerce, Brookton Road, and Northwoods Road.
That's a little clearer. Ernie?
Just have a question. Is there any hope that we can ask the county for any financial support? Because it is saving them a lot of money in that. I know it's kind of a long shot, but.
We can ask, but again, what they were doing, this annual crack sealing and the annual addressing of minor issues, relatively minor issues, is usually on our dime. That's something we typically pay for. It's not part of their maintenance. And again, this is a piece of the discussion that Supervisor Durant and I had with the Road Commission that we're trying to schedule for an upcoming meeting, a joint meeting with this board and with the Road Commission board.
John?
I appreciate the comments of our board representative. I think they've done a fine job, he and our manager. And I move to approve the amended and recommended sum of $15,000.
4486.
I'll second it.
Motion and support. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. 9D, discussion on Township 492 corner lot property.
No, that's 9C, right?
C was the crack ceiling we just did.
Oh, A, B, C.
Oh, I don't have a B on mine. How about that? It went right to C.
Lost the B.
Son of a gun. Okay, thank you. C, D.
Yeah, that's right.
So we just have A, B, C, and D, or am I missing an item?
No, that's it.
That's all.
That's all I got.
Okay. So Jason wants to talk about C then, right? D. Okay. Good. I thought that was a little strange, but. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't even notice it. Okay, now we can talk about the corner lot, which is C. Randy put an awesome package together for you of information on the 5-acre parcel. I guess if you, however you want to address it, Randy.
Well, at your last meeting, there was a fair amount of discussion, and there has been for several years, about what we should or should not be doing with the 5-acre parcel that we still own on County Road. I'll call it County Road 492. It faces on 492 and what would be the old Wright Street, or HD, I think it is. But at any event, it's been for sale since we moved into this facility. The purpose of part of the financing for this facility and the fire department was the sale of the former buildings. The former fire department was in essence sold to the Public Works Department, which they then expanded to be their new home. And the former Township Hall was sold to 906 Technologies, which is now their new home, which is going great guns, and is also, they're already outgrowing it. But at any event, we do still retain the 5 acres across the street, which is the area that abuts against Schwemmwood Park, and it runs up against the Walmart tire and lube section behind Starbucks. That's the 5 acres we're talking about. We have an asking price on that property at $100,000 an acre, $500,000 for the 5 acres. It is zoned as general business. It does have all utilities to it: water, sewer, electrical power. It is all there. My position has been that we should not reduce that price. There's been some pressure on the board to reduce the price for a relatively quick sale. I don't know that that's in the best interest of the township. I don't believe it to be in the best interest of the township. So the board asked for some information, some additional information, which I had put together from my perspective as your township manager and budget manager. And I have not changed my opinion. I understand there is some, we have several different appraisals for that piece of property, depending upon time and depending upon who did the appraisal. They range anywhere from $350,000 up to $750,000 was the highest. That was predicated upon us breaking that into 5 separate parcels and selling them individually versus selling a single parcel. So the board has all the options available to it. It is currently listed with the real estate agent, and you basically just asked for some information, so that's what I've provided to you.
So you can see by the nomograph that's in our, that's what planning puts together when they do their zoning districts, there are a myriad of different things that could be on that property. And then just for the public's purposes, general business is a cider mill, feed and grain sales, an amphitheater, a barber shop, bicycles. I'm just flipping through, there's tons of them. Catalog sales, clothing store, drugstore, flooring covering sales, funeral home, ice cream sales, office equipment, a pawn shop, pet shop. There's a gazillion different things on here that could go on that property. A restaurant, a theater, a teen club, water softening equipment sales and service, a warehouse, dental clinic. There's just pages of items that, any business as our township grows, any one of these businesses could take that property, and maybe at some point we would go down to 1 acre or 2 acres or whatever.
In essence, it's a general business. Just about anything other than single-family homes can constructed on that, and light industrial. Well, even some light industrial could be put on there, depending on what it is.
Special use permits. but-
Sure. So it has a wide range of uses, and you know, as we're moving off of the corridor with development, I can't see any reason why that piece of property wouldn't become more desirable, more valuable than it is today as property gets developed. I mean, you know, the property in here is starting to develop now. This is further away from US 41 than our parcel. You have access from 2 separate county roads. Yeah, I just think it makes sense for the board to hold fast with what you're asking.
John?
We've reviewed this a number of times, and I think it is the consensus of the board that we hold at least to the 100,000 per acre at a minimum. And I don't know that it needs to be discussed a great deal more. Why don't we just, if there's a formal agreement to that, the property is going to change, the highway is going to change, the marketability of that property is growing as the border with the highway is occupied. And it's not costing us anything to sit on it. So we're not losing taxes, we're not losing anything right now. And so it would be my thought that the board should simply say, we're going to sit with our original 100,000 minimum and per acre and move on.
Okay, Dave?
When we originally started this of late, was last meeting, we had the listing agent in here to talk to us about it, and the reason we started down this whole road was we were looking for a consensus of the board. I'm comfortable with accepting the manager's recommendation that we leave it at the current asking price.
I agree.
Okay. Do we want to just go with that consensus and forget it for
Absolutely.
now?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Being
all.
the
we-
treasurer, we're not losing any money
Yeah.
at this point in time.
Okay, because the question was asked, what's happening with this? What's the Realtor doing? So, you know, I got a hold of him and he came in, so that's where we are. That's totally fine. We'll just stay status quo. Thank you for that. Now we have 9D. Consider Chocolate, oh, sure.
Will the manager then relay this information to our Realtor?
But I don't know that there's, just a response to his his suggestion that we reduce the price. I think the response would simply be that the board has opted not to reduce the price. So we can communicate that, sure.
Okay. Consider Chocolate Township purchase of wastewater treatment capacity. And Superintendent Page does have some more background information. We asked him through the manager, and the manager asked his own questions, some more specifics, what it would cost us, whether figuratively or literally, to give up a % of our wastewater ownership that we jointly have with Chocolate Township and the city of Marquette. So, did either Steve or Jason want to speak first, or did? Okay, that's fine. Sure, that's fine. Kirk, do you want to give us a little explanation of your findings? We've got 2 or 3 spreadsheets in here.
Sure. At your last meeting, you considered Chocolate Township's request for additional wastewater treatment capacity in order to accommodate additional needs by the KBIC folks with a new casino complex. And you requested some additional information. So the additional information is, as I understand it, basically you wanted to know, where we stand in terms of our capacity right now and where we might be in the future. And so the first thing I looked at is the actual capacity use that exists right now and compared that to 10 years ago. So, and the plant capacity, the ownership is based on an average day demand on a rolling 12-month basis. So this is reported to the DEQ, and again, that's the ownership is based on that number. So in 2007, our average day flow for 12 months was 235,000 gallons a day, which was 61.2% of our capacity. And then our most recent 12-month period, our average day demand was 238,000 gallons per day. So we've reduced it. We're down to 61.8% of our own capacity. So then I was also asked to look at the current needs, and this will be the needs are actually given to me by the manager, and I assume that was based on discussion with the planner. And this would be pretty much people that have come in with potential plans for the future. So 2 new car dealerships, be 2,440 gallons a day. A 40-acre housing development similar to Cedarville is going to be 3,150 gallons a day. An assisted living facility is going to be 2,344 gallons a day. And of course, the big one is up to Sky Development, and that's going to be a number of different uses on one site, and that's going to be 32,780,000 gallons a day. So the total of all these potential developments over the next 10 years could be 40,714 gallons per day. And I developed these uses from comparable uses, in the township, but one I had to go to the city because, we don't have an assisted living facility here. So the proposed capacity sale to Chocolate, in terms of the amount that we would be releasing would be 37,500 gallons per day. So our current available capacity is 147,000 gallons per day. So if we did sell 1% capacity to Chocolate, that would leave our available capacity down to 109,500 gallons per day, or so we would still have 28.4% of our capacity unused. So if you add in the potential 10 years worth of developments, that would still leave us 68,786,000 gallons per day available, which is 17.9% of our current ownership. So if we do sell the 1%, that we would get roughly $56,000 in revenue. And then something else you wanted to look at would be we pay what's called the demand cost, which is based on our ownership, and that's basically 10% of certain costs. And those costs are on the third attachment. It's basically down at the middle part of the page, which is the recommended budget for 2018. So we're looking at the demand cost, which includes the debt, and then general and protective revenue, or general and protective revenue service. So those numbers total for next year $151,825. And this year it's $154,457. And I look back at 2008, which is the first year that we started paying the debt, and the number at that point was $111,300. So based on the 1% sale, again, we would realize a 10% reduction in those costs, and that's going to be roughly $15,000 a year. So my recommendation still remains to sell 1% capacity to Chocolate Township for, roughly $56,000, and again, that would reduce our yearly expenses by roughly $15,000. And we still have 28.4% capacity remaining for future development.
Any questions for Kirk? Down here. Dave, you already warned me, so go ahead.
I guess when I read all that, I found it kind of confusing. So I did a little summary myself and kind of ran some numbers out a little further than that. And I guess the thing that I found most confusing, we're talking about selling 1% of our ownership, which actually equates to 10% of our capacity.
No, we're talking about selling 1% of the plant capacity.
Right. But we own 10%. And if we sell
Correct.
1% of the plant capacity, we're in fact selling 10% of our capacity.
Not exactly. The plant capacity is based on, again, the average day.
No, I understand that. We
Okay,
have
so that's a number.
385,000 gallons per day is what we have in our capacity, right?
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now we have, let's see. Let's see
0.385.
here. 147,000 gallons per day.
No, that's surplus. Total capacity.
Well, right, yeah, yeah.
385,000.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about selling 10% of that, we're going to reduce our capacity, our available capacity by 10%. And I guess the part that was concerning me last time we talked about this is that we're not just talking 1%, we're talking 10% of the township's capacity, which doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would after I ran the numbers, because if you add in the anticipated growth, which is 41,000, that means at the end of 10 years from today, in 2027, we're going to have a gallons per day of 279,000 based on that projected growth. And that's 80%, 81% of our total capacity if we make the sale. If we make the sale, our total capacity is going to be down to 346,500 gallons per day. If we grow at the rate we're going to grow over the next 10 years, we'll raise our actual usage up to 279,000 gallons per day. That's 80% of that capacity. If you take a look at the forecast growth for the first 10 years at 41,000, and you run that out and see how far that's going to last us, the remaining 20% lasts us another 17 years beyond that, which means we can last 27 years from today before we use up 100% of our newly established 346,500 gallons per day capacity. When you go and look at the financial end of it, the 1% sale is going to be $56,000 back into the budget. But more interesting is the 27 years at $15,000 a year that we're going to save on the budget comes up to $405,000. You add that to the $56,000 and we can take $461,000 off the budget, which seems a little more noteworthy than $15,000 a year or $56,000 a one-time influx into the budget. And I guess after I ran all those numbers, I would support the sale. It just seems like a better deal for
Support.
Is that a motion then? 'Cause
Could be.
Don's supporting it.
Support.
Okay. Pete?
Why wasn't Marquette City, get it from Marquette City, who has 80%?
Well, they could. They could get the whole 2% from the city of Marquette. But the whole reason that Chocolate has been trying to unload capacity for, I don't know how many years, 20 years or more, and the reason that the city, would like to sell them as much as possible is that cost avoidance that Dave was just talking about. So in other words, what we're doing right now, what Chocolate's been doing more than anybody else, is paying today for future development. So what they're doing now is, okay, so they've got a big development coming in. So they're asking that big development to pay for their increased capacity need. And I'm assuming that Chocolate will also, allow additional hookups from Chocolate residents who don't currently have it available.
I'm just wondering, how much more is this gonna take care of besides the casino and the building down there? Because once you do that, they put that up, you're gonna have spin-off of other businesses down there as residents, because the soil down there is not that great to start with. You know,
That's
Are they gonna come back and,
It's not our problem.
Well, I know, but I mean, are we gonna short ourselves? Is it better for them to go to the city and do it? I don't know.
Well, I would imagine Chocolate doesn't care where they get it from.
Well, I just don't wanna short ourselves, because if we
Well,
have to go,
we're not shorting ourselves.
you know.
I mean, to be perfectly frank, the biggest future potential is going to be that up to Sky. Okay, well, they've been here 5 years already, and it's a great project, great plans, but they've had, extreme difficulty. They haven't done a thing. And then most recently, we heard from them like last year, well, when Myers comes, they're going to, we're going to solve all of our problems. Basically, they're landlocked, and they're dealing with all their land-owning neighbors are essentially other big developers. Okay, so they've only gotten what they've got, which is they've got one easement from the east end, which they had to sue for. Okay, so assuming that all these issues work out, and in the news maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the spokesman for Up to Sky was talking about even more difficulty with Myers now, which is supposed to be the answer to their problems. My point being, even if they were to solve all those issues, to get water and sewer, they're not on water and sewer right now. They would have to go through the whole process again to extend water and sewer through adjacent properties to get service. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. I'm going to say even if it does happen, it's going to be way down the road, and we're still going to have capacity for them.
Randy?
And again, when you're talking about plant capacity, it's a 12-month rolling average. It's not
Right,
just,
yeah, that
it's
doesn't
just
mean-
not one
yeah.
day, it's a whole month. So,
Right.
I mean, we got plenty of capacity. As I stated last time, we got plenty of capacity, and it's really a no-brainer in my opinion that we approve this. But I can't make the motion because I was on the failing side of it last time. So, someone else has to make that motion.
I thought Dave did.
Dave,
Do we need to rescind the previous motion?
Nope.
No?
Just have to have someone who vote on the,
You just
Positive
have to have
side.
someone on the other side make that motion.
I just worry about
I'll make-
what's down the road, that's all, that we can't plan on.
Dave said that it was a motion and you supported it, so that's where our discussion's coming in. Ernie?
I like all the numbers that Dave ran in that, and I think they open up another avenue of thought for me. But also, I look at, you have 5 items here, projected developments. With what's happening on the corridor and what's happening in the city of Marquette as far as land use and that, things are happening out here now. I actually believe that a lot more is going to happen out here than we can foresee at this point in time. There's a lot more going to go on. And I have a great concern that if we do this now, are we going to come back in 6 to 10 years and start looking for another percent on that? So I just, that's my concern at this point in time. Because I just think there's other things coming that we don't even know about. And we don't know about until they walk into the door and that, at this point in time and that. So we have no idea. We have that 5 acres there. We don't know what's going to happen there and that at this point in time. We don't know at all. So it's just, there's so many unknowns at this point in time. I don't know which way to go at this point. So.
Dan?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball to see the future, but I mean, we have to believe what the experts are telling us. And if we have the potential to save our taxpayers $500,000 over the course of 10 years or whatever, I have to be in favor of it.
Kirk, how did we end up with such a percentage if at the time we weren't even as flush as we are now?
Well, we did purchase back, I forget the exact date, early 90s, I think it was, in anticipation of the DDA TIF. But even that, I mean, if you look at the numbers, our use hasn't really jumped significantly. But what did increase was our ownership. So it's at that 10%. And I believe actually even after that point, it might have been, I don't remember the debt, but you know, Chocolate in their efforts to get rid of you know, some of their ownership issues, actually gave away some additional capacity. So that's basically how we got to where we are today.
Ernie?
Back in the 90s when I was on the board, I was on the DDA, and at that point in time with the development out in the township, it was looked at, we need to have more capacity. We weren't quite sure what's going on in that. And actually the DDA purchased the additional percentages at that point in time, along with a lot of other financial things that we need to do. And the DDA took care of a great many of it. And there was a lot of unknowns because the development back in the 90s on the corridor was just moving on everything. So we just didn't know on that.
Okay. Oh,
My one last comment is if we do get close to that capacity, we can always get more. There's not locking us in. We're not locking ourselves out of anything. We can always get 1% more if we need to down the road. So it's not really a big issue right now. I agree with Trustee Wiegand that over 10 years we're going to save our ratepayers $450,000. That's a pretty substantial amount of money for our ratepayers. And you know, as he projected out 27 years from now, and we don't have a crystal ball to know when that's going to, you know, what that's going to entail, but I just think that right now is a good move to do that. Like I said, we're not locking ourselves out of anything down the road. If I'm here in 27 years, then maybe I'll have to deal with it, but we'll see what happens.
Dave?
And I had some serious reservations at the last meeting about this because we didn't have any information. And I think once you have the information and you can put some numbers down and take a look at it, and if we can forecast out 27 years, that's more than a reasonable period of time to forecast that we have capacity to, and that's at a pretty aggressive growth. I mean, the 41,000 gallons per day in 10 years is pretty aggressive. And when you extend that out another 10 years, I mean, or 17 years, that's at the same growth rate. I can't imagine we're going to maintain that growth for the next 27 years. I just don't think it'll happen. We're going to run out of land a lot of time
That's
before
what I was
then.
thinking.
Well, right, we're reaching, you know, Ernie referred to the DDA TIF, which was, I mean, basically it was all vacant land. Okay, so that's where we extended the water and sewer. Well, it's getting pretty full right now. Now, I did throw out a couple of things that were on the list. You know, Mason's Bluff, for example. Well, it'd be pointless to reserve capacity for them because we would have to extend sewers out there. So that's a whole, you know, big expense. So
Okay, Ernie?
The one thing on the memo on July 27th, you talk about the sale is to take place at some time that the wastewater flow from the Keweenaw Bay Indian community is connected. So what we do today, is it
Future.
actually going to take effect today, or is it going to wait until that happens at that
They
point?
connect when they
They
connect.
connect.
So the motion should say that, something to that effect? I'm not sure.
Well, it'll be in the intergovernmental agreement when our two attorneys work that out. It will be in the intergovernmental agreement when that takes place, and it will be when the sewer connects.
Okay, Randy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Kirk, just a quick question. Right now, the capacity is rated at 3.8 million gallons a day. Is that the maximum capacity of the facility?
No.
of the facility. Well,
That's
ours
the-
is 385,000 gallons a day.
No, 3.85 million gallons a day. Is you've got that identified on the
Oh,
first graph?
yeah,
as
that's the plant
as
capacity.
the design,
That's the
is that the maximum capacity? Can it be higher than that?
Actually, it's possible that it could be. That was a number that was developed, several years ago. And that's actually on the permit. We used to pay it used to be maximum day demand was what the contract was based on.
I guess my
But
question.
this number actually came from the engineers designing the new facility. It's possible, depending on if we continue to be able to treat, what we're treating right now, that number could actually just be, with negotiating with the DEQ, a higher number.
That's what I'm
I don't know.
asking.
I can't give you
Is
a-
the plant limited to 3.8 million gallons
Right now
a
it
day,
is,
or
yeah, yeah.
or can it be higher than that?
It
It's
could
regulated
be,
by
but-
DEQ, correct?
Right.
Okay, so it could conceivably be higher than that in the future.
Yeah.
And I guess the
they
only.
probably wouldn't go a lot more, but
Yeah.
at some point, if it really reached that max, we would all have to look at expanding the plant.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at. If the plant has additional capacity, plant itself has additional capacity beyond the 3.8 million gallons a day that's currently designed for. The issue in Chocolate Township is now they have a large development that came in unexpected. Well, I shouldn't say unexpected, been expected for a long time, but maybe there or Nagani. But at any event, remember one of the issues when Duke Life Point was talking with us was our capacity for wastewater treatment if the hospital had located on this 40 acres. We have that 40 acres still available. We also have a large tract just to the west of Lowe's development and Meyer development that's available as well, several hundred acres. So the potential for similar large-scale development still exists, and we did not calculate that into these figures. What I asked Kirk for were the things that Jason and I have had actual discussions on with potential developers. We know that there are other developers that are having individual conversations with large property owners that we're not part of as yet, but we know those are going on. So the point that Dave made is, yes, there's a significant potential savings over the next 15 to 20 years by agreeing to give up the 1%. And what I was asking Kirk is that 3.8 million gallons a day finite, or is it potential that facility as it currently exists could be 4.2, 4.5 in the future, which would negate that issue for us going forward because additional capacity would be available. So that's the only point that I wanted to make with that question.
Randy?
Well, I know the city of Marquette pumps out 5 million gallons some summer days, so I know that the plant has more of a capacity than 3.8. But again, Kirk is correct. It'd have to be a DEQ negotiated agreement. But they usually, when they design those things, they usually leave some room for growth.
It's a conservative estimate, similar to our budgets.
I'll call a question.
Okay, and we're asked for a roll call too. So,
Okay, Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes?
Treasurer Johnson,
No.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
yes.
That motion carries 6-1.
Okay. Then we kind of bypassed you, gentlemen. Any comments or? Well, I gave you an opportunity, but I just want to make sure if there were any closing.
Talk about the $15,000 savings a year. That's savings. The project itself is going to bring more to the community than what's here, including Marquette Township. It'll boost the entire area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Also, the 15,000 is on the fixed cost. If our flows go up, you also have a reduced share of the
Cost.
variable costs on top of
Yep.
your fixed costs. So there is another factor in there that isn't in those payments.
Mm-hmm.
And all we were really doing is asking that a pattern, a formula be established for the cost of trading capacity that can be used in the future. Any one of the three parties could decide to need additional capacity in the future. It's not something, I don't think, what is established with this sale is set in stone at all. It's just meant to be probably a 5-year solution. And by that time, I would expect things to change.
Changed again, sure. Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Plus you
the
get a coupon
information.
for a snack bar.
All right, 10A, let's see, I have A, B, C, and D, so that's good. Consider South Vanderboom Water Project, South Vanderboom LPFM, Sanitary Project Phase 2, and Contractor's Final Pay Requests Number 5. Calls to Kirk again.
Okay, I'm asking for a couple of final pay requests for South Vanderboom, the low-pressure force main sanitary project number 2, phase 2, and also the South Vanderboom water project. The original contract was awarded for the water main to Associated for $116,032. Excuse me, that was the sewer portion. And the water main was awarded for $378,954.60. So basically the final cost are, as a result of all the change orders, pluses and minuses, $120,438 for the sewer portion, and $340,000 and $952.60 for the water portion. I've been withholding the final payment until completion of punch list. So those punch lists have been, they have been completed. So I recommend payment of the final pay for the sanitary project for $9,018.90, and the final pay request from for the water project for $17,047.63. And I recommend also that they come out of account numbers 590-154-012 and 591-152-013.
I move to accept the recommendation of the Public Works Director.
I'll second that.
Motion and support, Ernie?
The one question, Kurt, you've got two different figures here. It's only a penny difference. The amount of $9,018.90 and $9,018.91.
Yep.
Which one is it?
I'd round it at 90.
At 90?
I'd round it at 90.
Well, it's whatever it says on the actual request here.
If it is 91, I'll kick a penny in.
It's 90.
90.
90, okay.
Any questions for Kirk? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the manager's evaluation. Thank you, everybody, for getting it done in a timely manner. It's nice to have full board support. We did opt to have this done a little bit sooner because we have not only the evaluation, but the contract renewal. And the manager has made a request. Just to talk about the evaluation a little bit, I gave you just the background of the notes. I think that's kind of nice for you to see what everybody else is saying. I did not put any names on it, just so you could see the comments. Thought that was important. You'll see too that the manager's average score went up this year, or this time. Randy, did you want to add anything before we talk about it, or?
Well, I just want to, thank the board members for your vote of confidence, and I think we work very well together. We've been very successful in financial as well as growth management in the township. You have a terrific staff that I work with. They're very diligent, very professional, and very good at their jobs. I think I should be proud of all of them. They are long-serving, with very few exceptions, with new staff. Fire department is a very high-functioning fire department, very committed to this township. There's been some cultural change over the last several years that has been very positive from the township. I think you see that in your daily interactions with the department. Planning department has grown. The assessing department has grown, not by virtue of desire, but by virtue of need. Some of the things that we do are dictated by statute. The taxable value of the township has reached a point where we had to have a higher level assessor. The volume of activity that we are seeing has required the addition of a second assessor, which we trained internally. We didn't go out and recruit. We trained one of our existing staff. We've been very diligent about doing that. In the 15 years that I've been here, we've expanded the staff only to outside of the fire department by only 3 positions. So I think that's pretty laudable that we do what we do with 21 people total. And that includes the full-time firefighters that we have. So, we've got 6 folks that take care of our water and our wastewater system and our solid waste system. 6. That's all we have. So I think, they are highly dedicated. They are highly effective at what they do, and I think should be proud of all of them. And again, I thank you for your vote of confidence in what we do.
Thanks. Any comments or questions for the manager, Randy?
Well, I just want to thank Manager Gerard for when I became clerk 7 years ago. I was trustee, and then I moved into the clerk's role when, after the situation dictated that. I was deputy clerk at the time, and I got moved up to the clerk, and it was kind of hard because as a trustee, you don't know what the clerk does, and Manager Gerard kind of helped me through, and so I thank him for that. And here we are 7 years later.
And it seems like yesterday.
Yep, and I told you how the manager's been helping me, which is great, to take on so much more responsibility. He's a wealth of knowledge, too. Pete?
I'd like to thank him just for when you call him and you got a question, he makes the time for you and makes you feel like your questions are important. And I'm glad to see that how it turned out, because I think in the past, some of his decisions, I don't think the board was completely behind him at all times, but I think this board is completely behind him just by showing what we've done here. And I think we've got to get a couple more years out of him, but if he can only start working. No, I do. I think it's great because he takes the time, answers your questions. If you don't have them, he gets the questions answered for you and keeps us updated on a lot of things. Thank you.
Any other comments about the evaluation? Okay. Randy and I do have copies of that if you want to look at it, but I think you've got the highlights anyway. So 10C is consider manager's employment renewal agreement, which is kind of tied into the contract. It does say that we will do the evaluation first. Now, I know we gave the agreement to Roger to look at. Do you have any comments or anything you want to share just before we talk about it?
Well, certainly the decision whether to renew or not extend the contract is up to the board. From the legal standpoint of revising the contract, you will need to have a new employment contract, but if it's going to be essentially under the same terms, that's something that can be put together extremely quickly. There are a few dates that would have to be updated, begin dates, end dates, and then the compensation package ties into, in section 3, it discusses the CPI, Consumer Price Index.
Section 3.
Yes, section 3. So we would have to take a look at that and correct that, but essentially everything else, if you were going to just extend or renew, would remain the same.
And the manager is asking for a 2-year extension. John?
We could talk about this for a long time, and I think most of us will pay compliments to the manager. But the bottom line is, his request is in everybody's interest that we honor it, and I so move.
Support.
Support.
Motion and support. Ernie?
Couple things. First of all, I think the motion should also indicate that we need an updated employment agreement within the motion before we move forward, because the dates have to be changed and the dollar amounts all have to be changed in that, so.
And the compensation.
Compensation in that too, at the same time. Just to make it, as far as I'm concerned, legal, to make sure it's all laid out in that. Because right now, we're approving it and we don't have an updated agreement in front of us in that.
So you just want the motion to include that the corrections and updates and changes be put into place?
Right.
And
That
then-
would be, it would be revised by the legal.
Yes.
Roger would do that.
And basically, that would reflect current compensation. We're not talking about an increase or anything at this point, because I'm tied to collective bargaining negotiations with the professional administrative bargaining unit, which doesn't occur until later this year.
Obviously, something's going to come back to us, but
Yes.
but we've honored the request so that the action can move forward.
Mhm. Go ahead.
The one thing, and Randy's heard me talk about this before, about the actual performance evaluations. I don't like them. I haven't liked them for years and years and that. And on section 7, they talk about it as developed by MML, and we're kind of locked into that end of it. And I'd like to see somehow to move away from that and try to look at something else in that. There may not be anything else out there, but I just have brought it up year in and year out, and Randy.
You could,
kinda said that.
yeah, you could simply modify that section to say performance evaluation, period, and whatever format you determine to use. Now, at the time when this was originally negotiated, the reason that's in there is because the board at that time had adopted the MML document and process. That doesn't necessarily commit you to do the same, but you do need to do a performance evaluation on an annual basis. So
That I understand. It's just the,
Yeah.
I have never been in great, how do I want to put it?
Support? maybe?
Support of that document.
yeah.
I
Thought
think
there
that-
was better documents to use to come out with a
Sure.
better.
No, I guess the only comment I would make to the board is that, you know that both myself and Fire Rescue Chief DeMars have talked about, when is it time to retire, and my contract terminates at the end of this year. His agreement also it terminated at the end of this year, and both of us have discussed this, and Supervisor Durant knows this, but I don't know that all the other board members. Both of us have agreed to remain in position as long as the board is agreeable to extend our relationships. So.
Randy?
Yeah, I heard about Treasurer Johnson has made his comments known about the performance evaluation, but I've looked at others and they're virtually the same from other groups. I've seen others that are a lot worse, and if you're going to ask for a different one, bring one forward for us to look at also. I looked at a lot, and I mean, it's not perfect, but it's what we have, and I think it works pretty well for what we do. And I look at a lot of the ones that are developed today, and they are around that model. The one through the previous ones at my employer are terrible in my opinion, and they don't tell you anything about what's doing with the employee, and it doesn't give you a chance to comment, which this one does. And if you would like a better performance evaluation, bring one forward. That's all I have to say on that.
I don't think the format's so bad. I don't like the questions because they'll put opposites. It either does this or this, and it's like, yeah, but what if he just does one and he doesn't do the other? It's real difficult to hone it in. What I don't think you all knew, though, especially since the ones who haven't done this before, is that when you go into that fourth column to give him 4 points, you're supposed to give an example and not just check that box and say, yeah, exceptional. So for next time, just so you know, you are supposed to give an example on, I don't know that it's not gonna be counted, obviously it wasn't if you didn't do it, but that was the intent, that if there's something greater than normal or less than normal, you need to give examples to support your vote or your opinion.
But are you against giving an example in the middle section? I mean, I
Well,
gave
It
some.
doesn't allow you
I
to do
think
it.
what-
I gave some examples, and I didn't go to the for
did it
side
at the end,
because
yeah.
I have not been here long enough to
Yeah.
evaluate him that way, but I did give some.
I think what,
Yeah.
with the example that Supervisor Durant is talking about, is if the way that system is designed is, if you're going to evaluate whoever the person is as being less than good,
Right.
you have to give an indication of why, and if it's better than good, I can't remember what the exact terminology is, consistently performs above, I think it is, then you're supposed to say why you're rating that. So gets away from that horns and halos type issue, but in the center, you can still make comments.
Okay,
in the
yeah, I
center
understand
portions, But
that.
it's required for those two. If you evaluate either less than good performance or consistently above good performance, then you have to document as to why to validate it.
Okay.
So one more
yeah.
comment. We can do this either two ways. You can just either renew the agreement and then have Roger present us with a new updated contract, which would go to the next board meeting, and then we'd approve that, because you're essentially going to approve his contract regardless. Or I wouldn't have a problem with just approving the contract tentatively on the revisions of legal counsel, because like Roger had stated, it's virtually the same other than your base and your dates. That's the only thing that are going to be changing. So, I mean, so it's up to the board which way they want it to do. I'd rather just get it done in one meeting and not prolong it.
You could just add as updated by legal.
Is that your updated motion?
That's my updated motion. Is that good, John?
You're okay?
Okay.
Okay. That's it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, the supervisor and will sign the contract, and the clerk will be the, what do they call it, the witness or something?
So moved.
No, that's what'll happen. And then I will provide you with an updated contract then, once it's done.
Okay, now we're down to the manager's report.
Okay, you do have a printed report in your packet. I did want to hit a couple of things, however. One was the Caps Division Community Day, which was held on Saturday, August the 5th. It was a gorgeous day for it. We had a little bit of afternoon shower activity, but it was very brief in passing, and actually I think was pretty welcome when it occurred. We did have a couple of glitches. We did have an issue with the bounce houses. We did have a couple of times the bounce houses collapsed, and they collapsed simply because we overloaded the circuitry at the pavilion, so we had to rerun some power lines to keep them up. But it was, a little bit of added excitement there for a couple of minutes. Nothing serious occurred. It was just they deflated. Big balloons deflated a little bit. I think actually some of the kids really enjoyed it. But at any event, it was a day that was just filled with activities, and and I want to particularly thank the board members that were there. Throughout the day, Pete and Dave was there with his grandkids, and Dan was there with the fire department. And I want to thank the members of the department that stood there with the equipment and worked with the community to basically give them an idea what it's like in the life of a firefighter at that day. And I'll be thanking them individually. We also had the sheriff's deputy, Deputy Loonsfoot was there for most of the day. He did get a call late in the day and had to depart. We had a very active softball tournament that came off very well. We did have a challenge game in the middle of the day. The Sunny 102 staff crew challenged the township to a softball game, which out of 6 innings, we were ahead in 5 and lost it at the last minute on a questionable play. Let's put it that way. But in any event, we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We did something a little different this year. We had vendors provide the food this year, and the food was very good. We had, let me see if I can remember all these. We had, let's see, Oscar's Ice Cream Truck, B-Dog's Barbecue, Copper Crust Pizza, and a Little Red Caboose. All four were there offering a variety of food out throughout the day. The only, we had a lot of positive comments, and all of them felt that they did well that day. There was comments from some residents that they thought the prices were a little high, and we'll have to work on that for next year. One of the things we'll have to work on. Entertainment was Bob Butchko was there doing again this year on the piano. We had three bands playing. They ran all the way from let's see, what was it, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 10 at night. We had BST. We had the flat. I can never say this. Flat Broke Blues Band. It's a mouthful. And Daydreamers providing music, all kinds of music throughout the day, and that worked very well. Kids were entertained by the state police doing their fingerprint program and their driving simulator, as well as the bounce houses and face painting going on. There was a lot of activity there, and there were a large number of children there this year. So it was really a pretty good time. The two major complaints that we heard was, number one, there were a lot of dogs present, and we had a lot of complaints about the dogs there. So next year I think we're going to have to address that. Now, we do have the service dog issue to be concerned about, but none of these dogs were identified as service dogs, and I don't know why folks feel they need to bring dogs to these kinds of events, but we'll have to look at that for next year. The other issue that we had was a residential issue, and that was we had all of our equipment, our emergency equipment, sheriff's department, and all that were set up on Cherry Street, and we had closed the street off by permit. We had a permit from the road commission to close off the street, and we had them barricaded so folks wouldn't go in and park. We did have our fire equipment was parked there so they could get out rapidly, but that also created an issue for the residents on Cherry Street, getting in and out as they had to do. So I think what we'll do next year is we're gonna have a couple of extra people just manning the barricades on the two ends, and I think we'll issue to the residents, all the residents of Cherry Street, similar to like they do at the courthouse, issue something to put on their dashboard to them that will indicate as they're coming up that they can just be let out and let back in. So I think we'll alleviate that fairly easily. But did you want either Pete or Dave want to add anything, or Dan,
I just want to say,
anything to the community day?
as far as our people who worked over there, I mean, the fire departments, they did a great job. But one person that wanted to stand out a little bit, I mean, he was there by himself, was our grounds person, Andrew Wilder.
Yep, brand new.
Brand new. He did a great banged-up job.
16 and a half hours he was there.
And he went from one thing to another. He kept everything emptied, and not that the other ones didn't do it before, but for one person just to keep going, and that he did a great job. So,
with regard, jumping subjects, with regard to our BLS transport, you did have a report from Assistant Chief Shanahan with regard to it, and basically we're just about ready to be on the road. We've got a couple of little issues that have to be done as yet. The lettering is going to be done, and basically we've been tied up with the company's schedule. I mean, they're extremely busy right now, so they'll be doing that next week, I believe it is. Is it next week? They'll be doing the lettering, which is one of the critical elements for licensing. It has to be identified, so that once that gets done, there's installation of one additional radio that has not been received as yet that needs to be done. I believe it is fully stocked right now with the equipment and the supplies that it needs to be stocked with, and the last item is these interlocal agreements that have to be done with all of the various agencies, which we're not getting pushback on, obviously, but there's a process that has to be followed, and there's a number of meetings that have to occur, and then the state inspection will be the last item. And hopefully we in September we'll have this beast on the road and ready to go. Those of you who have access to scanners and have been listening, you can see that we continue to have medical calls. Most of those calls could have been transport calls with the ambulance. Some can't, but most of them have been. We're still running a high percentage, and they've been pretty busy. Summer office hours, reminding everybody that right after Labor Day, the day after Labor Day, we go back to the 8 to 5 hours. So office will be open to 5 o'clock, through 5 o'clock, and not closing at 4:30. Let's see, is there anything else big that I wanted to mention? Dave has already mentioned we're coming to the end of our 3-year road project, which means we'll be starting our 12 to 15-year maintenance program on the roads. And all of that is funded under the millage that was passed. And the roads are looking great. I mean, the next thing that we'll be dealing with is how do we control some of the drainage issues, and and what can we do, and how might we be able to do it. So that'll be what's coming up next. And I think, folks, next year, if we don't have as wet of a season as we've had this year, we'll see some dramatic improvements. It's just been tremendously wet this year. The ground is still saturated. It looks dry on the surface, but you get to start digging a little bit, and it's wet underneath. So, other than that, I didn't really have anything else to put on there, other than, again, to thank the board for your support, and hopefully we'll make a lot more progress in the next 2 years.
Any questions for the manager? I thought that was a yes, Randy. Okay, Matt, we're back to public comment. If anybody wants to ask or share or just say let's go pretty quick. Any additional board member comments? Randy?
As I stated before, our election went pretty well. Anyone that would like to be an election inspector, some of our group is getting old and tired, and I had actually a few that passed away this year that had worked for me in the past. So get a hold of either myself or Lois, and there's a class that you would attend in September that would get you certified. And then you could work elections in the township, or actually any township in Marquette County or a city. So just get a hold of myself or Lois. We're looking for some more people, if they're interested, to come and help us at elections. And everything went well, and I hope that continues. And we don't meet for another 2 weeks, and if the board looks to the back wall, our new board photo is up and framed, right straight back. So I did get the other one on the wall, and the new one is up. So
You didn't put no hair in my head, though.
I can't help that.
Editing that can't be done.
Dave?
Just to piggyback on the manager's comments about the road project, the 12-year maintenance program that we're embarking on, it is critical that we get the asset road management program complete. Without that, we have no control on the way to forecast our annual budget for that, and it's going to be really important that we get that done. So we need to step that up in the priority. But I'll start nagging you about it at regular meetings. So.
Is that,
Okay.
originally, Jason was gonna do that, is that gonna fall to Isaac? Did I understand he's gonna take that, or?
They're both working on it right now, but ultimately, when you get into the part of actually establishing the asset management, he has been doing the electronics and doing the GPS work on it, and then he'll take that project over as a final.
I've talked to Isaac about that a little bit, and they were leaning towards a program that Superintendent of Public Works had bought.
Yeah, I heard that, rather than doing
And the more they get into it, the more they're leaning back towards the ROSOF program, because there's complications in programming in the other one. And the ROSOF is free, and they train you for nothing. So, we just need to make a decision on that pretty quick and start moving in that direction. And a good example is this year we're coming up to budget, and we don't have a forecast on what we need to do for roads next year.
So do we just need to give the manager direction, or?
Sounds like he's already got it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were asking something or just giving
No,
us a
but I was
statement.
just advising you that I was gonna start nagging you about it
Okay.
in meetings.
That, you nag away, that's fine.
Oh, question for the supervisor. Policy governance, where we go from here?
Yeah, I emailed Susan with what we had done, and I haven't heard from her. She might even be out of the country. So I will nag her again and find out what the next step is. 'Cause I'd asked her to take our last, not this one, 2 meetings ago, asked her to give us a sample budget, or agenda, and show us, because there are a lot of nebulous terms in the sample she gave us, and I don't know what a lot of that stuff means. It's very cryptic. And I think that's why everybody was kind of, we don't want to do this, so I haven't heard back from her. I will rattle her cage. Pete, you had your hand up?
What we forgot to do for Community Days, we forgot to thank Todd Nordyke.
Oh,
He chaired
yes.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
So he did a great job. I hate to say that, but he did a good job keeping us on track, get everything done, and I think him and Randy was the bulk of it, and he ran with it. And,
He was there all day and night.
yeah, and he did. I think we have to just tell him that we appreciate that.
Well, then you won't be able to live with them.
Oh yeah, he's a cookie. The second thing I'd just like to remind again about the speed limit, and I'm hoping the Miner Journal will put a little emphasis on that, the 25 miles an hour, because there's so many people do not know. It just, you get from 25 to 35 to 45, and some of them say, I don't know, I just go. And with the roads being fixed, I was sitting outside watching the cars go by one day, and so smooth. I'll tell you, we've come a long way in the 3 years, especially on my street was very bad, and then between Woodridge and Erie, you went like that, and it was terrible. I mean, people riding on the side of the lawns and that because it was so bad, and just to ride up and down that thing is just unbelievable how nice it is. People should be very proud of themselves for voting that in.
Okay, Randy?
My last comment for the evening is we don't meet for another 3 weeks. Northern will be in session in 2 weeks. With the construction out there, be patient because it's in the city right now, it's terrible to get around. And with 8,000 more people, I can't imagine how it's going to be. And then a week after that, the public schools start. So just make sure we take time and be careful. The kids will be out in the mornings, and just be careful with all the road construction and school back in session.
Yes, Ernie?
Talking about construction on Fair Avenue, they're moving closer and closer to the township line.
Yeah.
And I would accept that probably within the next week or two, because my wife is not happy with the big trucks that are going by our house continually every day,
Yeah.
about every hour.
They're everywhere.
That. So they're going down by the church and turning, but that's going to be probably not available within a week.
Anything else? I've got a couple things I was gonna share. Oh, Randy, you did?
Oh, I was just going to mention the budget process. We have begun the budget process, and one of the things that Lois was waiting for was what was going to happen with myself and Ron. So, in terms of calculating the sheets, but anyway, she's using the June month end to put the sheets together. So those will be distributed here probably this coming week to the department heads. So you'll be seeing your preliminary budget by the end of September.
And we should have some numbers on Blue Cross too. Tom's working.
Not till October. You'll have projections, but we won't have any hard figures until October.
Okay, next year, speaking of community days, is our 170th year as a township. So I had mentioned through a couple of the board members, and I've got a lunch with Todd, and what we can do to do something different. I asked Randy if we could do fireworks, and he's kind of thinking no. Not sure where, but I'd really love to see parades and period costumes and balloons on everybody's cars or something, some outrageous thing, because I think we need to really celebrate. It's not a centennial type thing, a sesquicentennial. We've already had that. But 170 years, I mean, seriously, we were here before the city. So I think we need to
Come up with some kind of a theme, because the other day at the meeting, we were trying to think of some kind of a guidance, some kind of theme, if you can come up.
So anyway, I want to give you a heads up on that. And the fire department numbers, if you looked at them, 20 out of the 30 calls were medical. So that's huge. When that ambulance hits the ground, it's not going to stop, I don't think. I think we're going to be in business. And we did have a work session today, this board, with the Business Association in the township. And Randy gave a good report on the DDA. Those were the questions, some of the questions that the Business Association Board had asked about the mission of the DDA and what's happening with the improvements that are coming. We gave him an update on that, walkability, lighting, safety, and everything like that. Jason, the zoning administrator and planner, gave an update on what's happening with some of the development in the township, ordinances, ORVs, tiny homes, short-term rentals, design standards, pedestrian walkways. He kind of gave them an update, so the businesses know what's going to be happening in the next few years that are coming in. We didn't have a chance to talk a lot about the water or utilities or public utilities at all. So that's kind of an ongoing. He did mention the project that we scrapped, the multi-million-dollar project we looked at, and they were actually glad that we did, debt-wise, that that's just one less debt they have to worry about. So it was a good meeting. We've been trying to meet quarterly. Our next meeting right now will be November 14th, but we'll firm that up because we're trying to do something before the end of the year. We figured people would either be gone for Thanksgiving or Christmas, so we're shooting for that date. It could change, and that'll be noon here. I think that's it, that's all I wanted to share.
It'd be good, after watching that meeting this afternoon, it might be good to have Isaac come in, give some kind of report on the planning, give him, some experience.
Well,
I
he
think
could
that would be
probably-
good. Jason is good at, but I mean, Isaac, I think he might need a little bit of,
He could probably attend the next township meeting too, the business association meeting, and give the report instead of Jason,
we're gonna be very happy with him in the
Together.
future.
just for the experience. Yes, Dave?
Just a quick mention for anybody that might be watching this later on the YouTube is there is a public hearing coming up for the Planning Commission on September the 13th, and it has to do with what you were mentioning about this text amendment for access management and tiny homes and vacation rentals, and there's text amendments out there for all of that stuff that's going to have its public hearing before it comes to the board.
So mention the date and time again,
September the 13th, 7 p.m.
right here.
right here.
Unfortunately, we don't have the charter broadcast anymore, so it's only on YouTube, and we need to find a way to let people know, which could possibly be in print media. But at any event, the only way they can see the meeting other than being here now is to go to YouTube and just search on Marquette Charter Township, and all the meetings will pop up. They're all archived. So
The Gani and Ishmael are still on there.
I find that if you go to our
Maybe we
website,
should take some.
go down to the bottom right-hand corner, the little YouTube icon, it's very, very tiny. But if you click on that, it takes you right to the most recent meeting. You don't
And-
have to go through them all.
And all others.
Right, they're all there, but at least you don't have to search for them.
And then once you get there, you can subscribe. So every time there's a new meeting, it'll send you an email or something. So once you get there, you can subscribe to the link, and then it'll take care of you.
Good. Anything else? Anybody? One more motion?
Second,
So moved. So
I can
moved.
make a
I
motion.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, 8:19 PM.